Hi guys, welcome. Scatlink here, and we're off for our next Let's Play. And I've been wanting to play this game for a while, but I held off because a certain remake was announced years back that is in development hell. It's an Arabian Night, and it's not Aladdin. This game is a favourite from way back when. The Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time. And we're playing on the PS3 version. Because it's obviously widescreen, HD, and we don't have controller issues like we would on the Steam PC version or the original release that's on GOG. Although with certain controller layouts you can play it on Steam Deck perfectly fine. We also have achievements. Now, I'm going to have to edit in the music because going into the PS3 menu here kind of stops music from playing, although you can see that the game is playing in the background. Would you believe that I was thinking, oh, do I need to actually create the trophy graphics like I'd done before with Kingdom Hearts and Ico, because I played it before? Well, you can see what I've been playing recently. But if it wants to load in, there you are. But it's very Sands time. I haven't actually earned a single trophy, which is insane because, you know, most of these hidden ones would actually be story related. I've apparently never played it on this trilogy disc on the PS3. Yes, it is a trilogy disc. You get, well, the Prince of Persia Sands of Time trilogy, as it's known as. You get Prince of Persia Sands of Time, Warrior Within, and the Two Thrones, but you do not you do not get the one that takes place in between Sands of Time and Warrior Within, and that is the Forgotten Sands. But I do have that. Although, ironically enough, the rest of the Prince of Persia games I really haven't played much of. But if I scroll to the Forgotten Sands real quick, I do only have one trophy. And that's literally reaching the first milestone, which is getting in the thick of battle. So, you know, if I was going to do it in chronological order, which is what I would probably do. However, I haven't actually played all of them. The Sands of Time has been the one that I've played to death. And apparently, it's only been on the PS2 version, and then, of course, the PS3 version. I had to grab the trilogy because it was just good value for money getting the Two Thrones Warrior Within. And then I also picked up the Forgotten Sands along with, because it was all part of the same quadrilogy. But, because it's basically a four-parter story. But I never really got round to doing it. But of course, Sands of Time is the beginning, and it's the one I played the most. That's the one I have the most nostalgia for. And it's the one that was going, well, it's still getting a remake, but it was been, as I mentioned, in development hell. So we will be covering the PS3 version. But there will also be going temporarily back to the PS2 version, and then an American copy, a US copy of the Xbox version, because there's a bit of a weird change on that. But before you even start playing the game, I must recommend that you go into your options, no matter what version, go into sounds and turn voices up to the maximum. Because even right now, he's pretty quiet. And at some points, because they're actually talking and yet the camera's far away from them, you can't hear them, because there are kind of like 3 different types of voices that you could have. Narration, which is always loud. Then you've got inner thoughts, which are louder, because that's in the moment, than the narration. And then you've got, like, in the present voices. So the characters themselves are talking, and if they're far away, you wouldn't hear them as much. So it could be a little bit of a helter-skelter, so hopefully, when characters are talking, and they can do so during gameplay, I will shut up, and it will require a bit of editing, because I've got to make sure I'm not talking over them. So that's kind of a little bit of annoyance. Music, we will have at a decent volume, because the music in this game is awesome. And effects, well, you don't really need them, but it's good for impact. PS3 version has a little bit of a bonus, which a lot of games at the time used to have. They actually have options for stereoscopic 3D if your TV is compatible with it, and if you have a gold-plated compliant HDMI cable. So you won't be able to do it through component, and of course you can't record PS3 in HDMI, you have to use component. And of course there's no way for me to show that to you, but if you have a compatible TV, you should be able to play the game in stereoscopic 3D, just like what you could with Ico and Shadow of the Colossus. Camera, you can just invert it, that's really the only difference. As well as controller, we actually have controller bindings, which is very nice. You can't change them on console. There might be a couple of extra options depending on the system you're playing on. But ironically enough, I'm actually using a DualShock 4, not a DualShock 3. However, I'm using it through my Wingman XE2, so I have home button functionality. I also have rumble and gyro, so I don't have to deal with the jank of my DualShock 3s doing random inputs because of, you know, their age, because DualShock 3s are very brittle, shall I say. Much more brittle than DualShock 2s, and DualShock 4s are much more sturdily built. It's a good adapter to get if you're having troubles with your controls, because if you remember during my, most of my playthrough of Shadow Man 2, which was a PS2 game, but I was doing it through my PS2 compatible PS3, my DualShock 3 was having some input issues, and I was doing random stuff when I wasn't telling him to do so. It's been getting worse, so I needed a new adapter to sort that out. But regardless, all you can really do in that menu is turn on the rumble, and you can make multiple saves. You're not just locked to the one saves. And the game is very linear. You can miss stuff permanently just by moving on to the next save point for the majority. So make sure you grab everything. And I'm going to grab everything. But this doesn't mean it's going to be 100% because I'm not necessarily going to be able to get every achievement. But in terms of a normal gameplay on older systems as well, before the HD systems, it would be 100%. So with that, guys, let's start our game. As we saw, the prince was running toward this balcony, and it looks like we're going to pay a visit to the sleeping Maharajah's daughter.
Most people think time is like a river that flows swift and sure in one direction. But I have seen the face of time, and I can tell you, they are wrong. Time is an ocean in a storm. You may wonder who I am and why I say this. Sit down, and I will tell you a tale like none that you have ever heard. Know first that I am the son of Shahraman, a mighty king of Persia. On our way to Azad with a small company of men, we passed through India, where the promise of honor and glory tempted my father into a grievous error.
No, my son. Your Majesty, I trust you will remember your promise. The Maharaja's treasure hoards lie within. See how he rides. Like a warrior son.
Do you think I felt regret as I gazed upon the destruction we had wrought? Or at least humility at the speed with which a world can be transformed from a good world into a hell? If you think so, you are mistaken. For in that moment I thought of one thing only. The honor and glory I would bring my father by fighting like a warrior in my first battle.
Well, they're dead. Yeah, again, good thing that we had the men in order to pull this off, considering that we were just passing through originally. But then, promise of all these untold, bountiful stuff that the Maharaja is keeping trapped within his palace walls made King Shahraman want to invade, and, you know, he just happened to have his youngest son with him. That's bad. We're getting some tutorials on the screen which are very unintrusive and just telling us what we are able to do. X, while on a ledge, is allowing us to jump. We can even do it while standing still, but if we're moving, we do a roll. You press too early, try again. That's because you got to do it at the edge in order to actually jump. Got some first-person camera action here, but you need to use the right stick in order to actually look around, otherwise you just get knocked out of it. But you can also press L2, or left trigger, for a more of a panoramic landscape view sort of thing. So it's like a fixed camera perspective. Changes depending on where you are. So, for example, if I were to walk in here, we get a different perspective. X square to attack. And we got a small little health bar on screen there that only shows up when we have our weapon out. Don't worry, that soldier can't see me until I go through this door. If you want to put your stuff away, it's circle. Circle is to cancel, which is something I actually want to show up before we get moving too far. If you're over a ledge, you can press circle to hang. X to climb up, circle to drop. Remember that. Circle down, X up. Rolling is also ever so slightly faster than running around normally. Alright, let's get him. We can hold R1 to block, which will do like a stance like this. If we time it right, we can actually counter-attack. Like that! A Grand Slam is normally what is used to knock out your opponents. That's called a combo finisher. You can also do a double tap forward in order to do it when you're targeting an enemy. Otherwise, you're only just running around with your weapon. You can do a full combo. This is your full combo. Oh, no, hang on. That's your full combo. You're mostly not going to do that. The final slam is what you always want to get off, and you can get that easily. Let me show you how to get it quickly. Double tap forward to the enemy. Immediate knockout. Sometimes enemies will block you as well. That's not a problem. We can dodge by rolling sideways, or we can vault into him. Oh, the Matrix! Slap! Bam! Lovely stuff. You know that you're done with combat when the game puts your weapons away itself. For that cinematic flair. Not PS2 games seem to do that. Now, obviously, I'm going to refer to this game as a PS2 game.
Many men that day sought to win honor and glory on the battlefield, that their king might say to them, as Khosrow said to Rustam, "You are the noblest of my warriors." From the moment my sword tasted blood, I knew this would not be my way. I would win my father's praise, not by killing, but by being the first to find the Maharajah's treasure vault and the wonders within.
Water allows us to heal, but since I didn't take any damage, I didn't need to drink any. It goes up per sip that you have, so you ought to have enough time to actually drink enough to heal. The water of life, as it were. So, I know I referred to this as a PS2 game. I mean, obviously it's on PS3 as well, but it was the only HD port that it got. So, fair and valid, I guess. But I do want to make mention that I will be referred to this as a PS2 game because there's a lot of similarities to other PS2 games, like Ico. So this is multi-enemy combat, and we could have saw a bit of this last time, but you saw I was flipping around everything. Holding it into a different direction where an enemy is will make you target them, and you'll be doing like some kicky flippy shit like this. It's just to keep the pressure off. Kicking basically happens when you change targets, and that allows you to basically kick flip their guard away, so you can smack them. But again, as I showed you with the double tap attack, like double tap forward then attack, you automatically do the jump attack slam, and that's your combo finisher. That is the attack that you want to get off as most as possible in order to start taking out enemies. Because basically when they're on the floor, they're prone or dead. So it's the best thing. And now for one of the signature moves of the Prince. Wall running! Just hold your right bumper, and you can run along the walls. Now, tell me, if you played this game back as when you were in the day, when you were a child, if you had like a slope, like in one of those tunnels or whatever, that just go underneath a motorway or something like that, you cannot tell me that you didn't try wall running like the Prince, and maybe even try to do it longer than you could, without losing your footing. You can't tell me you haven't. I still don't need a heal, so I'm doing good. We can get back in. Nice. Especially since the door in front of us is non-existent. And the ladders are destroyed. Don't worry, we're resourceful. Let's do a vault and double attack for an uppercut slam. That will take him out very quickly. I'm not away. I didn't mean to put my weapons away. For some reason he did when I jumped, but... Oh, I'm getting a bit of frame rate drops there. That's because the things keep culling in and out and I don't like it. My PS3 is also pretty old, so, you know, don't blame it. The frame rate would be a lot more janky if it was on PS2. But at that point, I would have played the PC version for widescreen. But this gives me the best of both worlds, plus achievements. So we got to do what we do in Ico and scale some walls here. You move a little bit faster if you're hugging the wall, or you're kind of hanging like this with your feet on the wall. Thankfully, we're not getting sniped, which is lovely stuff. Circle to drop. Of course, I'm going by PS2 and 3 controls, so your mileage may vary on the buttons, but basically it's grab and pull up, / jump. Now, you can actually avoid these guys if you get this jump correct. Aha! They didn't see me. What you're supposed to do is start from the bottom there and jump your way from down, right, up from that broken one where my back is turned to right now. But you don't need to fight every enemy. You can just dodge them. Also, while you're on poles like that, if you just hold the correct direction and jump, you would automatically jump in that direction. But it can be a bit janky depending on the controls scheme as well as the camera angle. So on PC, if you're using like WASD, probably not a good idea because, you know, you're going by...
Shall I continue my story from here the next time we're interrupted?
You're going by compass directions, 90-degree angles, but the camera may not equivalent to that. So yeah, thank you for interrupting me, but we do have an option to save here. This will not be the normal way that we would save, just so you are aware. But this does get away from the introductory part. We're basically halfway through the prologue. Now, on PC, not only do you get a bunch of save points per profile, you also can make multiple profiles. So tons of saves. On console, it's mostly limited to your storage on your memory card, or on the PS3's case, per profile, because obviously it is like that. You only get... Oh, okay, you get way more than I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6... Oh, why am I reading out? I didn't even see the 42 there. I'm stupid. I didn't even see, like, the 1 out of 42 in the corner there. That was my bad. Whoopsie doodle. But regardless, I'll make a save, and which means we can make tons of backups if we want to. Unfortunately, as soon as we save...
I'll start the story from here next time.
I can't make a backup of it, but don't worry, that we will be able to later. So it wants us to run along the walls. There is some water down there if we need it, but that is perfectly fine. So the Prince doesn't prefer combat, but that he prefers like being sneaky and athletic, which is kind of funny considering how he walks. He kind of like walks with a stiff back on an angle, but that's mainly because of the sword on his back, as you can see here. Yeah, he's not exactly the most fastest, unless he's wall running. So, I think this dude needs to see a chiropractor. Thankfully, he sorts that out in laser games. We can wall jump as well. Very nice.
And there it lay, just out of reach. The dagger of time. There was a treasure I could carry with pride as a trophy of our victory. If I could only get there.
Before we do, let's hop down and drop. Alright, that was a bad move. I took some fall damage. Pro tip, just like in Zelda's Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask on N64, and maybe other Zeldas as well, but it was introduced in those two games, if you hold forward and then X as you land, you could roll, and if you're on the cusp of taking fall damage, like I was basically on the threshold, plus I can also shoot healing, you'll be able to avoid taking fall damage, but it only works if you can actually survive the fall damage in the first place, so don't abuse it.
The hourglass drew me, fascinated me, but to move it would take a dozen of my father's soldiers. I wanted a prize I could fit into one hand.
You know, the Dagger of Time and the hourglass that hold the Sands of Time go hand in hand. You wouldn't be able to use the dagger if it wasn't filled up for sand, and the sands are encased in the hourglass of time, so who knows if there is some sort of way on using them in conjunction. There is a legend that surrounds the hourglass of time, but it's on a wall coming up later. Also, if we could just jump through this wall, like dive through it, we'd easily be able to get that, because there's no glass in the way. Unfortunately, our sword would get stuck, so we're not going to try and dislocate our shoulders. So let's keep making our way around this room. Excuse me, mate. I held the run button. I held the run button. The wall run button, as it were. Good sir. There we go. Right. You could probably make these jumps, but wall running is just a lot better. Plus, you get that cinematic camera. And again, you could not tell me that you didn't use that to run. I know I keep going on about it, but it was such a, like, childhood thing back in the day. Also, avoid spiky poles, you don't say. Also, do not use the landscape view. You may not know where we are. We are behind the poles right over here, so... yeah. You would think that that would give you a bit of an overhead view, a better overhead view. Ow. But unfortunately not. Doesn't matter, I got hit there. I am going down here anyway. I am pressing circle. I don't know why I'm not climbing down. There we go. I can have some sippies here. Yeah, the camera will do that if it can't actually zoom in properly. But here is the legend. So, we have a djinn and a sort of, like, lady goddess thing. And they've got, like, a baby going on with a ifrit and some white glowy stuff. The ifrit, unfortunately, beat his father djinn to a pulp and then started going on a rampage because no one could beat him. Somehow, the djinn came back, or maybe the father of djinns, and took out the ifrit, and stole what is now yellow stuff, which looked white to begin with, into an hourglass. The golden sands of time. And if we head just beyond this statue here, which I think depicts the djinn in the picture. No, it's just a harem lady. Yeah, he's now almighty and guarding it with a sword, which could be the dagger of time, chop the head off of who abused it before, and keeps the sands of time encased in an hourglass. So, this story kind of shows the fact that even though it is a supernatural thing, even supernatural beings should not abuse it, and they could only be stopped if it was extracted from them. We'll run all the way to the wall. There is a ledge here. Otherwise, if you jump, even though you land in the water, you will die. It is only just slightly high enough. And full damage, as in taking a little bit of chip damage like I did before, is the only way you can survive full damage. Unless you roll, as I said. And that, again, that's if you have the health to survive it in the first place. I'm going to have to wall run here and jump to this ledge because of that indent in the wall. But yeah, if you fall too high, if you die to full damage, that's it. That's just a one-hit knockout. This is perilous. That's a better camera angle. And it wants to change immediately. We'll stick with this for now. Oh boy, that was bad. At least we didn't take full damage there. Or hurt our arms. Let's not... Be careful not to press the wrong button, because that is easily doable. And, yeah, again, very Ico-ish right now. I'm going to make a lot of comparisons to that game. I know, Prince of Persia on the Apple II came first, or the Macintosh, whatever. But in terms of on PlayStation 2, Ico came first, I'm pretty sure. Alright, what are we looking at? Well, isn't that perilous? The camera's having a bit of a moment there. I never noticed that before. Right, again, hold a direction and you can just jump straight to the pole, but it may be worth not doing that because it is a bloody big drop. So maybe don't do that. Let's just take this slowly. We're not speedrunning here, although there are achievements for doing this in a certain amount of time. I'm not going to hold a direction, I'm just going to face toward, jump, then hold forward, and roll, so I don't take full damage, although there was a fountain right here. Any water is good water. Now, look at this! Holy hell. This area is just in disrepair, which is amazing, considering that this is where you're keeping one of your prized possessions imaginable. What if this all crumbled? The dagger would be lost to time, quite frankly. I doubt it could rewind itself. Well, it might be able to. It depends what the button is. Like in the movie made by Disney, which I thought was a good movie, but it didn't exactly follow the plot of this game. It was, and also the design of the prince was from Forgotten Sands, but I guess it was also kind of cross-promotion. Let's make our way up, very skillfully, and we're on the opposite side of that alcove. Well, that was lucky. Well, maybe don't do that, you cocky bastard.
I had what I came for. It was time to get out. Now.
Sandbearer, we have an achievement. The place is collapsing, we need to get moving, but yes, we do have 4 sand tanks, well, 3 out of 4 sand tanks in our inventory right now. And we can also use the dagger by stabbing stuff with triangle. But if we have like a bad moment, we'll be able to use the power of the sands within the sands with the dagger in time to rewind like we just saw. So if we have bad moments, we know what we can do. There's a gate in the way there, so we're getting railroaded. But we're actually back at the hourglass right when we saved. Perfect. Let's get out of here. And maybe we need help with our father. King Shahraman. Ha!
Oh.
Father, I have brought us honor and glory.
Your Majesty, you promised me my choice of the Maharajah's treasures. That dagger.
Surely you won't deny the lad a souvenir of his first battle. You may have your choice of all the Maharaja's other treasures. Except that hourglass. That will make a fine gift for the Sultan of Azad when we pass through his city. And some exotic animals for his menagerie. And a few dozen slave girls. Yes, that should be enough. I want no animals or maidens harmed until I have chosen. Let it be known, King Shahraman is merciful in victory.
So, that traitorous Vizier wasn't happy that he was denied 2 of the most legendary artifacts that the Maharajah had available.
Trust not a man who has betrayed his master, nor take him into your own service, lest he betray you too. I learned the truth of this to my sorrow, the day that we arrived in Azad as the Sultan's honored guests.
My friend.
My friend, your visit brings joy and honor to my poor and humble dwelling. If only you'd given me time to prepare a proper welcome.
The glories of Azad are famed throughout the world. And yet, the best is yet to come. I give you the sands of time. May the friendship between our kingdoms endure as long as time itself.
The sand, why does it glow?
I can tell you. Inside the hourglass is a marvel that no living man has seen. Alas, only the dagger can unlock the sands of time, and it belongs to a greater one than I. A young prince, dearer to his father than all the wealth of India. Perhaps he will oblige.
No. No! Stop!
Is it meant to do this? Alicia Sigataha!
Give me the dagger.
No.
You have unleashed the sands of time. I can undo what you have done. Give it to me.
I mean, he had a snake staff, a turban, and looked like a purple version of Jafar from Aladdin. If you have a snake staff and you look like that, you pretty much are an evil man in Arabian stories. Let's be fair. Also, that red-dressed lady knew what was up. And the sands have turned everyone into zombies when we're getting mobbed. It's time to protect ourselves. Knock him down.
Use the dagger.
We stabbed a dude when he was prone on the floor with our slam, like that. And as this red-dressed lady is telling us, the Maharajah's daughter, is telling us to retrieve the sands, which did refill our tank. However, if we leave them too long, they get up. That's a problem.
Now, finish him.
Each time I struck them down, they rose to fight again. I soon realized that only by taking into my own dagger the sands that possess them, could I liberate them from their monstrous living death.
If you want to move faster, put your weapons away first, and then you're able to run away a lot better. There is water at the end of this hallway if you need it. Also, there is something forming here. And we're building a little wedge next to our first tank. Interesting. Are we done? We're not done! They're warping in! At light speed! They've got the sands of time within them. They are basically invincible zombies! That was close. Slam you in the back. Vault with a double attack in order to slam them in the ground, or you can just double attack forward and to go straight into a jump attack if they don't block it. We gotta knock them onto the floor in order to make them vulnerable to an absorption, basically deleting them from the game and building up our supply. And so far we haven't had to rewind yet, which is very nice. Try to keep that going as long as possible. Honestly, if you don't want to be fighting them normally, I press circle, not triangle. That's a control difference in the PC version that throws me off all the time. Ignore that. Honestly, a vault with these particular guys, the red spears as well as the grunts, a vault double attack is perfect to knock them out. Or you can attack once and then triangle on the landing to immediately absorb them. Taught you a couple of tricks there to make things more easier. But there's a sand vortex, and we don't seem to be affected by the sands when they were making everybody else zombified. That's a problem. But does that mean that we're immune to this, or does it affect us in a different way? This is our main method of saving in the game. And most of these are multi-use. As in, you can go back and view them again if you need to. This is a sand vortex. Not only does it allow us to spiritually make a checkpoint, just like with the ability of regeneration through determination, we're able to save our game here, as well as get a little glimpse into what comes up in the future. So I think at that point, guys, I'm going to save the game, and I'll see you guys next time.
Done. I'll start the story from here next time.
Give me the dagger.
No.